All right, so we have Lizzie shoots an arrow upward at a speed of 40 feet per second from a platform 30 feet high. The pathway of the arrow can be represented by the following equation, where h is height and t is time in seconds. What's the maximum height of the arrow? All right, so let's kind of draw this out, see what we're talking about. Oops, sorry. So we have hold on, sorry. Okay. So we have Lizzie on top of a platform shooting an arrow. It travels something like this. And this first part, like the 40 feet per second from a platform 30 feet high, isn't really essential to our problems. All right, what's essential is this equation that they give us. All right, we're going to be using that equation to help us solve for the maximum height. Now, where in this picture would the maximum height be? The like very top, right? Yep. And what's that in math terms? The vertex. So it's normally like an XY coordinate. Now, our answer isn't like both parts of that coordinate. It's only one part. So look at the equation that they give us. They made it really easy because they put T's and H's instead of X's and Y's. So what letter is in the position that the X would normally go? The T. So the X part of our vertex represents time, but it's not asking for time, it's asking for height. What letter is in the spot that our Y normally goes? So we're looking for the Y value of our vertex, because that's the one that represents the height. Questions about how we figure that out? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into Desmos, except for that I need to change the T to an X, because Desmos doesn't read T's, it reads X's. So I'm going to put this into Desmos and, graph it, see where my vertex is, see what the Y value of my vertex is. So negative 16x squared plus 40x plus 30. You two are talking way too much over there. All right, so look at the vertex, which is the tallest point of our graph. Hover over it. Now, what's the Y value of my vertex? 55. So the maximum height of the arrow is 55. Questions about that? Yes? Yes. All right, so our answer was 55 feet, because that is the Y value of our vertex. Questions about this one? Questions about another one from the test? Yes? Now, one about the rectangle? All right. So let's see, yes? When Katie comes back. So here we have a similar example, not exactly the same, but close enough. The length of a rectangle is 9 less than twice the length of its width. If the area is 56 square meters, find the value of x. All right, so let's draw out a rectangle. And we have length and width here. It talks about what the length is, that it's 9 less than twice the width. But what does the width equal? Does it say? right? It doesn't explicitly say like the width equals this. So the width is an unknown, we'll call it x. And over here we have the length, which is 9 less than. So what operation is that? All right, subtraction. Now is it 9 minus or minus 9? If it's 9 less than. Does the 9 go on this side or this side? If it's less than, good, it goes over here. 9 less than. Think of this as like a switch word, the than part. All right, because normally it'd be 9 minus, but since we have than, it now becomes minus 9. All right, so 9 less than twice the length of its width. When you're doing twice something, what operation is that? Multiplication. And we don't know what the width is. It's x. So it's 2 times x. Does that make sense how we came up with that? All right. So this is what we have. Now we also have this formula, which we're going to plug into it. So it says that the area equals what in the problem? Yes, but in the problem, what does it say the area is? 56. So I'm going to put 56 in the area's position. The length we said is 2x minus 9. And the width we said is x. So we're going to multiply this out. Distribute that x to both terms. What's 2x times x? 2x squared. What's negative 9 times x? Good. Equal to 56. Now what do I do before I solve it? Yes, you subtract the 56 because in order to solve it, you do need to set it equal to 0. So I'm setting this side equal to 0 by subtracting 56. And then what you do on one side, you have to do to the other. I just realized I did it wrong in my other classes today. Oh well. I'll have to remind them tomorrow. All right, so we're right here. Now you can solve it a ton of different ways. You could put it into Desmos, you can factor it, you can do the quadratic formula. I like putting it into Desmos. So I'm going to put this into Desmos. And I'm going to look for where it crosses the x-intercept. So it's 2x squared minus 9x minus 56. All right, so here's my parabola. Gonna see where it crosses the x-axis because that's where the solutions are. And I have two options. I have negative 3.5 and 8. Which one makes sense for measuring the length or width of something? The negative answer or the positive answer? The positive answer. I cannot measure the length or width of something and get a negative number. So it has to be this one. All right, since we're talking about real world problems, you can ignore the negative answer and only use the positive answer because it makes sense. All right, questions about that? We had x equals negative 3.5 and x equals 8. Ignore the negative answer. The positive answer is the one you go with because that's the only one that makes sense. Questions about this one? Questions about another one? Yes. Number 7. Let me see, I forgot what that one was. 2x squared. Thank you. I'm going to do a different one because I don't want to just give you the answer. Okay, so quadratic formula. We'll do this one. All right, so 2x squared. All right, so we're solving using the quadratic formula, which you will be provided. You do not have to memorize it. You just have to memorize how to use it. So it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Right, this formula you are provided. You just have to know how to use it. So is this quadratic function in the right format to be able to use a quadratic formula? Do I need to change anything about the way it's written? All right, good. It's already equal to zeros. It's already in standard form, so we can just go ahead and start labeling which one is our A, B, and C. What's my A value? 2. What's my B value? And my C value is? And I get that from this format, if you didn't know. All right. Make sure you keep the signs with that number. That's what I saw a lot of mistakes on when I was grading your tests. So plug it into the formula. Make sure you use parentheses. So I have x equals negative b, so negative 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 8 squared, minus 4ac. So minus 4 times 2 times 5. All over 2 times a, which we said is 2. All right, any questions about the way I plug this in? All right, anytime you see parentheses, that means I plugged in a number there. So if I were you, I would do the same. Now we can clean this up a little bit. So what happens to this negative 8? Becomes a positive 8. This portion here, let's make our lives easier and put it into Desmos. You might get a weird answer, but you should know how to deal with those weird answers. On the bottom, what's 2 times 2? All right, so put what I boxed in green into Desmos and tell me what you get. I'm going to put it in as well. All right, so when you entered it, what did you notice? Did it look weird? It should have looked like this. So here's what you're supposed to do when you run into this situation. If I get a decimal and I know I entered it the correct way, you take out the radical, good, or the square root symbol, just backspace on it. And you can see what it was before we took the square root of it. The reason it was a decimal is because the square root of 24 is not perfect, right? So here's what you do. Go back to your paper. And I'm going to put the square root of 24, like I'm just going to put the symbols. And then all I have to do, I could circle this and call it my answer, but I'll lose a point there because I need to just make sure my radical is simplified. Do you remember how to simplify the radicals? Good, you make a factor tree. What are two numbers that multiply to 24? You guys are all correct. I'll do 6 and 4. 6 breaks into what?
3.
And 4 breaks into 2. I'm going to cross out stuff that isn't prime so that you don't get confused. But basically, I'm looking for pairs of the same number, right? Because you need a partner to escape the jail. Do I have a pair of the same number? So I'm going to have a 2 on the inside or outside? Outside, because if you have a partner, you can escape. I have 2 numbers left over. Where do they go? And if there's multiple, you're going to multiply them together. So 3 times 2 is, so this is the radical that's going to replace this right here. So my answer is x equals 8 plus or minus 2 radical 6 divided by 4. A lot of people just got the decimal and were like freaked out and we're just like, oh, end of time. All right, no. You put it here, simplify the radical, and that's all you need to do. Questions about this one? You can. So simplified would be, if you simplify it, it would look like this. It's just we haven't covered how to simplify these, and I don't know why, but I didn't think now was the time to start. All right, you guys will simplify next year. Questions? All right, we have time for one more. Which one would you like to see? Any last ones that were hard for you? None on the graphing, none on factoring, yes? Number 8. Number 8. Let me see, what was that? Okay, completing the square. I think I did one earlier. Okay, so let's do this example for completing the square, which is x squared minus 6x equals 14. I think we did one today similar. So what's the first step? Is it in the right format for completing the square?
No, it has to be 0 on one side, so you have to subtract both.
Wrong. Completing the square is the only one where it's written in a different format than standard form. All right, good try. That's right, 75% of the time, except for this one. All right, so you're supposed to rewrite it as ax squared plus bx plus c. So is it in the correct format already? Yes, so this one's already written the correct way. Step 2 is to take half of b, remember? Half of b, square it, and then what? So take half of b, square it, then add to both sides. What's my b value? So half of it would be, and squared would be, all right, good. This is the number that I'm going to add to both sides of the equal sign. On the left side, I don't have any like terms, so I'm just going to rewrite it so it looks like a trinomial, like standard form. 14 plus 9 is, good, 23. Next, we factor the trinomial, which if you don't remember like the special way that we did that, just do the diamond method. I'm confident you guys can do that one. So if I set it up with the diamond, what number multiplies to 9 and adds to -6? Good, and they should be the same. All right, because it's a perfect square trinomial. This is how you write it. All right, because they're the same. This is how you'll be able to solve for x, which is the next step. If you want to stay and watch, feel free. Oh, put them on the folder on your way out. Do not take them with you. Thank you for reminding me. All right, but you solve for x, which means you have to undo what's being done. So instead of squaring something, you take the square root. You get x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 23. Add 3 to both sides. And then you can't simplify the 23. No. Sorry, that was a long one to try and squeeze in, but that was it. All right, have a good day, guys. Have a good day. See you tomorrow. Be ready tomorrow.